Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. It's good. We recording?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. All right, let me ask you guys a question. Name some different haircuts.
Drop fade,
Drop fade,
reverse fade,
burst fade,
all fade,
bald fade,
taper fade.
taper fade. What else? All the haircuts you can think of.
High skin fade.
High skin fade,
Layer.
mohawk,
Layer.
layered,
Layer cut.
tapers,
Trim.
trim. No, not a cut. High and tight. Any more you think of?
Comb over.
Comb over,
Pompadour.
pompadour,
Top cotton.
all them cuts, right? All these different cuts. I want you to take all them different cuts
All over even.
and I want you to throw them out of your mind. Because it's only 3 cuts in the whole wide world. It's only 3 cuts in the whole wide world. It's only 3 cuts. Those 3 cuts are all even, skin fade, and light fade. Every other name is a variation of one of those 3 cuts. So if you say burst fade, does the burst fade begin with skin or does it begin with hair? Because if it begins with skin, it's a skin fade. If it begins, that's up to the customer's discretion, right? So if a customer comes in and they say, because this is what you guys need to understand, you guys need to learn how to compartmentalize what type of haircut you're doing. That's the first thing. So when you get a picture, customer shows you a picture and they say, hey, I want this haircut. And it's a picture of a fade. Say, hey, so do you want to start with hair on the side? Or do you want to start with skin? Because they say, oh man, get these people that come in and they throw out all these numbers. Man, give me a 1 on the side and a 3 up top. So do you want to be able to see the scalp? Yeah, just give me a little bit of here, a little bit of here. That's a light fade. That's a light fade. They say, hey, man, I want to drop fade. You want to drop fade? So you want to start with hair? You want to start with skin? Well, I want to start with skin, but I want it kind of dropped. It's a skin fade. Somebody comes in and says, hey, give me a 2 on the sides and a 4 on the top. It's a light fade, right? So by compartmentalizing these haircuts, then it allows you to better understand what you are doing with the cut. Okay, so
Drop fade when it drops into that.
Below the system. Just below the system.
Part of that bone. So take it all in. That's all the question.
so somebody comes in and they show you this picture right here. What is that?
It's a skin fade. Low skin fade.
It's a light. It's like a taper light because he bald. He's skinned by the taper area. Well, that's the skin because he's dropping.
You see this hair right here?
It's gone.
No, this hair right there. That hair? And that's
light area.
that's hair. So if you see hair, it's a light fade. Right? If you see hair, it's a light fade. Hold on, man, leave it up. No.
See from right here, that's still the rose like.
Skinny. That's branded flowers.
What is it? Skin, light, what is it?
Skin. Light. Skin. Skin of the taper area. Where there's hair on the taper?
There are only 3 haircuts in the whole wide world.
Skin.
Okay.
What is it?
Light. Light too, but there's skin. Skin.
What is this right here? What does it start with?
Skin. Skin.
It's a skin fade.
Trade line on.
Huh?
A trade line up there.
What is that?
Light. Which one, the left or right?
This one right here.
Light.
What is this right here?
Skin.
Skin. So what is it?
The one on the right is light.
What is that?
Skin.
That look like JP.
This is a JP.
What is that? Skin. What is that?
Light.
What does it start with at the bottom?
Skin.
What is that?
Light.
What is that? What is that?
Light.
Good. Okay. So, compartmentalize. It's only 3 haircuts in the whole wide world. Everything else is a variation of those haircuts. So when someone shows you a picture, you should immediately compartmentalize it. What am I doing? Am I doing an all even? Am I doing a skin fade? Am I doing a light fade? Okay. Okay. So with that, there are 2 things that every barber must be if you want to be successful. You guys need to write this down because this is important. 2 things that you must be. And it's non-negotiable. If you want to be successful, you must be accurate and you must be efficient. Accurate. Accurate means that when someone shows you a picture, shows you what type of hairstyle, what type of haircut they want, then you need to be able to achieve that haircut. That's accuracy. Now, with accuracy comes expectation, right? So, as a barber, you are responsible for setting the expectation level. Everybody know who Anderson Cooper is?
Yeah. The new school.
I'll show you a picture of Anderson Cooper.
He's at the white.
So that's Anderson Cooper. Everybody, that's Anderson Cooper. Okay. Everybody see his hair. Everybody see Anderson Cooper, right? Okay, that's Anderson Cooper. So this is a true story. We had a guy come in, had hair like Trey Sean, showed us a picture of Anderson Cooper. Said, that's what I want my hair to look like. Want to look like Anderson Cooper. And you know what the barber said? I got you, let's go. There's no way possible that it's gonna go from that to that, right? So how can you have someone that comes to the door with that type of haircut and you possibly be accurate and give them that? It's impossible. It's impossible, right? So barber, instead of saying, all right, I got you, just say, hey, you know what? Let me counsel you. I can't get you there. But let's look at some other things that we can do. There was a student here that had hair about like Chris. And he was convinced he was going to have waves. So he wore a do-rag every day for about 2 months. And he was upset when he came into school and I had to take him off. He had to take it off because he was convinced he was going to have waves. And the other student that was cutting him was convincing him that he could have waves. It's impossible because of the hair pattern, right? The type of hair and the hair pattern. It's impossible. So it is super, super important that your number one job is you're a consultant, right? And so to be accurate, you have to set the expectation level. The next thing is efficient. Barbering is a numbers game, right? It's a numbers game. How many heads can I cut in a day? How many heads can I cut in a day? You could give the greatest haircuts in the world. If you take 2 hours to give a haircut, you're not gonna be a barber for long. You're not gonna be a barber for long, right? Because you can't take 2 hours on a haircut and still make the money that you need to make in the barbershop, right? So you have to be efficient. When you leave here, you should be about 45 minutes. But you want to get down into about 30 minutes where you perform a haircut in 30 minutes. If you're doing a more basic haircut, a kid's haircut, then maybe you can perform that haircut in 15, 20 minutes, right? But you can't spend 2-3 hours on a haircut because the numbers don't support that you'll make money doing that, right? So how do you become accurate and efficient as a barber? It's a very simple thing to do, right? So this number is significant. 10,800. That number is significant. Anybody know what that number is?
I mean, work hours in a year or something?
That is 10,800 is how many hours you must do something to become an expert at it. 10,800 hours. So think about it. If on average, a haircut, let's just say a haircut took an hour, right? So if you did 10,800 haircuts, you should be pretty good at it. Right? So if you got to the point where haircuts were taking 30 minutes, then that's you doing almost 20,000 haircuts, right? So you should be good at it, right? So, but here's the key. And this is one of the major points that you need to take from this class. Super, super, super important. This will carry you throughout your barbering career. this rule. The procedure never changes. It is the technique that changes based on the type of hair you're cutting. But the procedure never changes.
What's the procedure?
That's it.
Yep. The procedure never changes. It is the technique that changes based on the type of hair that you're cutting. So let's circle back around to the 10,800, right? So if you did the same procedure 10,800 times, you're pretty good at it, right? You should be. You did the same procedure. If I told you, hey, listen, you're gonna tie your shoe 10,800 times, but you'd be pretty solid at it, right? You'd have developed a good technique. You'd have a good procedure, loop, swoop, pull, whatever it is. You have a great procedure in getting it done. You like, nah, and you probably could do it. You probably have a good procedure and develop some other techniques in there where you could become faster and more efficient at doing it, right? The same thing with haircuts. So if you have 10,000 haircuts and you have 5,000 different procedures, you're not going to be good at any of them because you don't do them enough to be good at it, right? So when you guys go out on the floor and you do observations and you see people struggling with haircuts, the reason that they struggle with haircuts is that because they're constantly changing the procedure. With every haircut, it's a different procedure and they're doing every haircut differently. And so then they don't become an expert at any of them because they never keep practicing the same thing over and over and over again, right? That's how you become accurate. That's how you become efficient. It's because you have a procedure and you do it no matter what, right? Okay. So you got to become accurate. You got to become efficient, okay? Any questions on that? Okay.
Basically find a way that works for us and do it.
No, it's not what I said. It's not what I said. No.
Just throwing it out there.
I'm throwing it back to you. Okay. So understand this. When you are cutting, the very first thing that you need to do is there are questions that you should ask every single client that comes through the door, right? What's the first question you should ask?
What kind of haircut are you
Hmm?
getting? I always ask, what kind of haircut are you getting?
The first question that you should ask is, how often do you get your haircut? That's the first thing you should ask. How often do you get your haircut? The reason why you should ask how often do you get your haircut is because based on what they're showing you, if they get their haircut often, then you may be able to see the haircut pattern and analyze what type of haircut they had before, if there was anything wrong with the haircut, if the barber messed it up, where do the growth patterns of the hair. How often do you get your haircut? Now I'm gonna run off on a rabbit trail real quick because the other reason why that is so important is because it helps you with your rebooks, right? So when you guys go through my sales class, then you guys better remember these numbers because I'm about to give you a little preview to the sales class. A successful barber rebooks what percentage of their clients? Said 100. Successful barber. 55 to 75%, right? As at a minimum, you should be booking 55, and you really should be somewhere in that range in 75%, 55 to 75% of your clients, right? So that's an example of working smarter, not working harder. So watch this. Everybody has a number. Everybody has a number. Everybody has a monthly number that you have to achieve to live, to pay your bills, right? So if you're in the shop, if Von's in the shop and his number he has to get to every week is he needs to make $1,000 every week to support himself, right? If you're a barber and you're not rebooking, then that means that you're starting at zero every week. So how hard is it every week? How much stress, how much strain does it take if you're starting at zero each week to get to $1,000 and recreate that wheel every single week? Difficult. But if you're rebooking and your numbers to get to 1,000 and you're starting off at 500, do you want to be starting off at 500 or do you want to be the guy starting off at zero? So it's rebooking, right? So, like, well, man, what does rebooking have to do with asking how often do you get your hair cut? It's really simple. He walks in, how often do you get your hair cut? He tells me, hey, I'll even with a taper. Okay, how often do you get your hair cut? I get my hair cut every other week. That's awesome. So I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna do my haircut. I'm gonna show him the mirror. It's gonna be amazing. And I know that he came in at 10 o'clock on Thursday. So I'm gonna say, hey, I know you said that you get your haircut about every 2 weeks. So I'm gonna go ahead and put you in the system 2 weeks from now. It's Thursday. I'm gonna put you in the system for 10 o'clock, 2 weeks from now. And you'll get a text, a reminder, 24 and 72 hours, letting you know that, letting you know about the appointment. If you can't make it, then just give me a shout. Otherwise, I'll see you in 2 weeks. You know what that is? That's a rebook, and I didn't ask you. I didn't say, hey man, you want to come back in? No.
You didn't give me the option to say no.
No, because I'm assuming it, right? That's how I get to this number. So you're killing two birds with one stone. You're asking a question, how can you get your haircut? Because you're looking for the growth pattern in the hair. You're looking for if you can see the last haircut, but you're also setting it up for later, for when after you give the haircut and they like the haircut, so you can assume the rebook also to build your clientele. Okay. What's the next question you should ask? It's another question you should ask also. Anybody, any guesses? You should also ask, what type of products do you use? What type of products do you use? Because if somebody comes in the shop and they've put a ton of grease in their hair, that affect the cut? It absolutely affects the cut. It affects the way that your clippers move. It affects the way that the hair lays on the head, right? So if there's a ton of grease in the head, if there's a ton of product in the head, styling gel, holding mousse, whatever, it's gonna affect the haircut. But the other reason why I want to ask that is because when you get in the shop and you have your own products, it's opportunity for a retail sale later on. So hey, listen. So I know you want your haircut wavelength. Hey, I have some great pomade that I'm putting in your hair. It's super light. It'll really allow the waves to pop out. Oh, okay. Put it in. Oh man, that smells great. Hey, do you sell that? It's another revenue stream for you, right? So those are two questions super important to ask. And then the other thing that we see new barbers do all the time, fine, it's what they do. They get ahead in the chair. You say, hey, do a skin fade. And then they just grab the clippers and they start going to work without ever once taking a comb and analyzing the hair pattern, analyzing the head before you cut it. You should always do that on a new customer. You don't know if the customer has cowlicks. Everybody know what a cowlick is, right? You don't know if the customer has cowlicks. You don't know if the customer has some type of scalp disorder. So you're going through and you're analyzing. When you guys went through chapter 4 and we talked about infection control, I know you haven't been through it, Rodney, but when we talked about infection control, I told you about the guy that he started cutting the kid's head and the kid had lice in his head, right? The lice literally just jumping out of the kid's head, right? But before he started cutting the kid, he never took the comb through and did a scalp analysis. But he took the comb through and did a scalp analysis, he would have saw the lice jumping out, right? So by combing through and understanding the hair pattern, understanding of any infection control problems, any of those things, that's the first thing that you should do, especially if it's a new customer and you don't have any familiarity with that client's head, right? Because new bars just want to jump in. They just want to jump in and go to work. No. It's important to ask these questions. It's important to analyze ahead before you start your work.
It's part of the procedure, right?
Not quite, but that's something that you should do all the time. So let's see. Let's talk about this. Let's go back to a skin fade real quick. Let's see. Let's go with this one. Okay, everybody take a look. Everybody take a mental picture. Clearly, the skin fade, right? Okay. So now let's talk about it. So now we're going to talk about procedures. Doing a skin fade, right? When we start fading, there's a couple of identifying things that we need to look at in the fade. Hey, can you grab me a comb, please? All purpose. So there's a couple things that we need to look at, right? When we're starting a skin fade or any fade, the first thing that we should identify is where is the occipital bone. Okay? Anybody know what the occipital bone is? What's the occipital bone? The occipital bone is the bone that's in the middle of the back of the head. All occipital bones are not made equal, right? Some are higher, some are lower, some protrude more, some are flat. We have to identify where is the occipital bone, because the occipital bone determines where we're going to begin the fade. So the one thing that we never want to do is we never want to create, if we're doing a skin fade, right? We never want to put our balding line, which we'll talk about that in a second, into the occipital bone. The reason that we don't want to put it into the occipital bone is because the occipital bone creates a natural shadow. And that shadow is very hard to get out. And if it's hard to get out, it takes us more time to get that out, then we're not being what? We're not being efficient, right? So you never want to fade into the occipital. Chris, turn to the side. Turn to the side. Everybody see Chris's occipital bone. Everybody see it. It's a little higher. Exactly. See it? Occipital bone's a little higher. Rodney, turn to the side. Everybody see Rodney, occipital bone. You identify it?
Yeah.
Right there. Right there. So it's a little flatter than yours. Yours protrudes more. Turn to the side. Can you see his occipital bone?
You don't even have one.
No, that's probably mid-area.
Right in there. Right? So that's the first thing we got to do is we have to identify where the occipital bone is, because it creates a natural shadow. So we either want to start our fade above it or below it. So if he has a higher occipital bone, right, then we probably want to go below it, because if we go above it, then now we're shrinking our fading zone, our fading area. So when someone says a drop fade, literally we are dropping it below the occipital bone. It's still a skin fade, it's still a light fade, but we're just going below the occipital bone. So let's say people have occipital bones that are even down here, right? So let's say they have a lower occipital bone that's down here, and they say, hey, I want a drop fade. But do you want skin or do you want hair? Well, I want hair. I want to do a light fade, right? So even if I'm dropping it, I'm still going to drop it above the occipital bone, because if I drop it down here, right, then if I drop it down here, then I'm already back here down by the hairline, because the occipital bone is so low, right? So I'm determining where the occipital bone is, and then that helps me determine. Now, if the occipital bone is up here, I just drop it below it, right? So you're determining that determines where you start your fade at, the occipital bone.
Above it, below it, never on it.
Never on it, because it creates a natural shadow that is very difficult to get out. Okay? That makes sense? So I'll tell you guys a quick story. So I was at a continuing education class, and there was a guy there doing a demonstration, and the guy was doing a demonstration doing a skin fade, and he started balding the guy out. And when he balded him out, he put the bald line right in the middle of the occipital, and the guy had a huge protruding occipital. And I turned to Kenisa and I said, he's gonna have trouble getting that out. And he's on stage in front of 200 people. He's going through and he's fading. And he got to the occipital bone and he's having trouble with it. So he just went past it because he's nervous. You can tell he's a little nervous because he got 200 people and he's teaching a class and he can't get a line out, right? So he did the whole fade, man. He did a line, put a design in. The fade was amazing. Then after he did all that, then he tried to go back and get that shadow out from where the occipital was.
It's here, like right on the occipital.
Right on the occipital. And so it took him about an extra 15 minutes just trying to work with it to get it out without messing the rest of the fade up, right? So he wasn't efficient because he faded to the occipital bone. Make sense? Okay. So back of the head. Okay. Back of the head. We're doing the skin fade.
So, what products do you use? When they say these products, okay, do you have to use those products in your hair now? Yes. Can I offer you a shampoo?
Exactly.
Or if they say no,
If it's gonna stop you from cutting, it's gonna affect your job, then they gotta get it.
Yeah.
Or you decline the service.
Yeah, because if someone comes in and let's say somebody comes in and they have like a bunch of grease in their hair, right? Number one, that grease is going to cause your clippers a problem. When that service is done, you're going to take your clippers apart and you're going to have to clean. I mean, you're going to have to really clean your clippers and really work and almost take the head off just to get that grease out of there, right? Because it'll gum up the motor, it'll gum up the blades, right? So if that's the case, then that client doesn't have a choice. Hey, we need to shampoo your hair. Now if it's not a ton of grease, then you can also take a hot towel, rub the towel on the head, then take a dry towel and dry it off. Just depends on how much product is in the head, right? But if it's a ton of product in there, then you can't accurately perform the service. And the client has to understand that. Okay? So, skin fade, right? So, everybody understands that when we're doing a skin fade, that you have your masters, right? Your masters, they have 5 notches on them. Okay? 5 notches on the side. Look like that. 5 notches on the side. So if I'm on the 5th notch, then that is considered to be what? Open. If I'm on the 5th notch, then I'm all the way open. Okay? If I am on the 1st notch, then I'm closed. Okay? So if I'm doing a skin fade, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to identify where the occipital is. Right? I'm going to close it up. I'm going to start around the temple area, closed up, and I'm going to begin balding, right? Now, when I start right here, I'm going to bald to the middle. I'm going to go to the other side, and I'm balding to the middle. Why am I not just coming all the way around?
Line straight. Why not keep your line straight?
We just talked about it.
Because you don't want to get on
You don't want to go too high.
Right. So essentially, yeah, it's like you said, like, yes, you don't, like, you want to keep that because you don't want one side higher than the other, right? So if I'm over here and I come all the way around and I got this side that's down here and then this side up here, but by meeting in the middle, then both sides are even, right? That makes sense, right? So again, I promise you, the stuff that I'm telling you, you get out there, you can see people doing it. Don't be those guys. Don't be those guys.
So it's best to, start from right here.
Uh-huh.
And don't even worry about the middle first. You want me to like
No,
right here?
no, I'm coming around. I get to the middle, and I'll come to the other side, and then I meet in the middle, right? Either above or below the occipital. That makes sense? Okay. Then closed, right? So we close it up. We skin this, right? The next thing that we do after we close it up. Well, let me ask you this. Can we achieve getting the hair or getting the head to skin with just our clippers?
Not those clippers. Unless there's 0 gap.
Doesn't matter.
Say that question again.
Even if the clippers are 0 gap, can we achieve getting the head cut to skin?
Unless you have all the clippers.
You could. Yeah, it's more work for you.
Even if it's 0 gap, you can't achieve getting it to skin. You're gonna, because then to achieve getting it to skin, if you're doing a true skin fade, then you're gonna have to go back through whether it's your liners, whether it's your foil shavers. That's what you have to achieve to get to skin, right? Even if there's 0 gap, you cannot get the head to skin with the clippers. Okay, so the next thing you're gonna do is after you close it up, then you're gonna use your liners, your foil shavers, whatever. And just as a sidebar, you have to be really careful if you're using foil shavers on kids because their heads are really sensitive, and the foil shavers sometimes it'll cause ingrown hairs on younger kids. So you have to be careful with that. I would definitely recommend when you're doing a skin fade on kids that you use your liners instead of
So
foil
you go
shavers.
0 and then liners.
Correct.
And just same way against the grain.
Yep. All the way through. Got it? Okay, so looking at this haircut right here, remember taking a mental picture of the haircut. We're going to look at the top, and we're going to say that is
2 against the grain. 1.5.
okay. So let's get this elephant in the room out of the way. No, we're in class. Excuse me. Okay. So let's get this out of the way right now. I see that we had this up on the board here. You have to get used to using the fractions and not the numbers. I'll tell you why. Because you're going to go into the state board test, and the state board is going to ask you what, and you're going to be doing your fate on the mannequin. They're going to say, so what level are you cutting the hair? I'm cutting it with my 1. No, I'm cutting the hair down to 1/16 of an inch, or I'm taking 1/16 of an inch. I'm taking 1/8 of an inch, or I'm cutting the hair down to 1/8 of an inch. You have to begin to speak in that language. You can't say, oh man, I'm gonna use a 2 and then I'm gonna use a 1. And here's the other thing that's practicality as far as the shopping that is that different manufacturers have different guards. So if somebody's been at home cutting their hair at home and they've been using Conairs from Walmart, and they come in and say, yeah, I want a 1 on the sides and a 3 on the top, or hell, they might have been using Conairs and like, man, I want the green guard on the side and the pink guard on the top, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And then you say, oh man, I'm okay, a 1, and then you put your 1 on there. Oh my God, this is too short. You can cut all my hair up, right? So you have to ask questions. You want a 1 on the side. So do you want to be able to see your scalp or not? Oh God, no, I don't want to be able to see my scalp. Well, you don't want a 1 on the side, right? So, and I want a 2 on the sides. Okay, so you don't want to be able to see your scalp. Oh no, I definitely want to be able to see the scalp. I want the hair short. Well, you don't want a 2 on the side, right? So, but you have to get used to that. Am I using a 1/16? Am I using a 1/8? Am I using a 1/4? So in this picture right here, we're going to say that he is
1/4.
1/4. I'm going to say that we're using a 1/4, and everybody take a mental picture of that. Okay, fine. We want to say 1/4. What are we saying? Halfway against the grain. What are we saying?
Well, that right there probably 1/4 open.
Okay, so
Against the grain.
So we're going to say that up top is 1/4 open. Now you hear us saying against the grain, with the grain. Against the grain of the hair means that I'm cutting against the hair pattern, right? Which means that I'm cutting, means I'm taking more off, or I'm cutting the hair shorter. If I'm going with the grain, then I'm taking less hair out. Okay, make sense? Okay. So, step number 2. So I've scanned it, right? Now I'm going to the top and I'm cutting the top to the desired length. That's the second thing I'm doing. I'm cutting the top to the desired length. Why would you go to the top and cut the top to the desired length? The reason that we go to the top and cut the top to the desired length is because by doing this, this lets us know exactly what guards we're going to use. So if we're cutting 1/4 open, then that lets me know I'm using my 1/16. I'm gonna need my 1/8. I shouldn't need any other guards. So if I'm on the top, I'm using 1/4. That lets me know that I'm gonna need my 1/16 and I'm gonna need my 1/8 guards. I don't need anything bigger. That's all I need to achieve this haircut. So again, it simplifies it and it breaks it down for you, right? Now, what we're about to talk about now is we're about to talk about fading zones. When you build a house, do you just put the roof on and start building from the top, or do you build from the bottom? Because you got to have the foundation, right? You're a construction guy. You got to lay your foundation, right? lay your concrete, you can start building the house. Okay, so you cut the same way. Skin fade, skin it. Now, I've cut the top down to the desired length. Now I'm coming back to the bottom. We're gonna start building the fade, right? So, fading zones, right? Fading zones are your compass so you don't get lost in the haircut. So, if I took Rodney, I took Chris, and I took them to Yellowstone National Park, right? And I took them to Yellowstone National Park, and I said, hey, listen, I dropped them off right in the middle of the Yellowstone National Park. And I say, hey, listen, if you guys head southwest, you guys be home by dinner. I gave Rodney a compass. I didn't give Chris a compass. Rodney used the compass. He heads southwest. Rodney's home by dinner. Chris doesn't have a compass. He heads northeast, thinks he's going southwest. He headed right into the bear's den in Yellowstone National Park. He gets 8, he's dead. Sorry. He didn't have a compass. It's the same thing with a haircut. So this is how this works. We've skinned it. This is skin. Now, Vaughn, open the clippers to open. We're going open, which is what notch?
5.
5th notch. So we open it. And when we open it, then what we're doing now is creating our first fading zone. So see, he's going open around it, open, right? So
Close, open. Trying to burn it in.
So we had skin down here.
So this is the skin line?
No, this is all skin. This is all skin.
Okay.
And then this is open, right? So we have skin down here and we have open right here. So open means that I have hair right there, right? So I have skin, I have hair. So this is the 5th notch, or it's open, right? So now I'm going to come back down to where the skin starts, and I'm going to close it up, and I am going to begin to notch up. So I'm closed, then I go to level 2, then I go to level 3, then I go to level 4, then I get right back here to the 5th notch. And this fading zone, this boundary right here, lets me know do not go higher than this level with that 5th notch. Because if I go higher, then I'm doing what? I'm raising the fade, right? I'm raising the fade. So I got skin, I got my fifth notch or open. Then I come back down and I begin to notch up. 2nd notch, 3rd notch, 4th notch, 5th notch. I get right here, I'm at my 5th notch. Make sense? Everybody with me? Okay, Chris said it doesn't make sense.
With the notch out?
No, so if you got skin, if you got skin right here, you're not cutting anything.
So look, I got skin down here. I did open right here. So if I got skin down here and I got open right here, then from here to here, I got hair. This is all skin. This is open.
Oh, so you already went and put a line in here, a guideline?
This is all skin. When I put it open, I created a fading zone right here.
Okay.
Everybody with me?
So that's your first guideline.
Everybody with me? Okay. So then I close it up, and I just begin to notch up until I get to where my open boundary is. Got it? Everybody with me? Okay. So then I come back. I put my, what's my smallest guard? The 1/16. 1/16, my smallest guard. Don't do that. I'll put my 1/16 on. 1/16. So open, 1/16 open, that is my next boundary. So I got open, then I got 1/16 open, right? So when I come back down to this open right here, then what am I gonna do with that 1/16? Trayshawn, what am I gonna do with it? Think about it. I was right here, I was open, and then I came back down here and did what? What did I started with what? When I was open, right? That created my boundary. And then I came back down here and did what? I closed it up. So if I'm 1/16 open right here and I come back down here, then what am I gonna do? I'm gonna close it up and I'm gonna be 1/16 on the first notch.
Don't even worry about it halfway, like.
1/16 on the first notch, right? And then as I go up, I'm gonna do what? Huh? Adjust the levers what? Open. So I'm gonna notch up and I'm gonna open it up the higher that I go, right? So I'm 1/16 closed, right? Then I'm on the second notch, the third notch, the fourth notch. Now I'm to the 1/16 open boundary. Follow me? Follow me? Now, what's the next one? 1/8. 1/8 what? 1/8 open creates the boundary, and then I do what? I come back down to 1/8 what? 1/8 closed, and then I do what? Notch up, 2, 3, 4, open. Now watch this. So this is 1/8 open, right? What do we use on top? 1/4 open, right? So then, do I need to create another boundary? Because then I'll put the 1/4 on it and I'm gonna do what? So I'm starting off with 1/4 what? I'm starting off with 1/4 closed, and then I just notch up.
Because you already did 1/4 open.
Because I already did 1/4 open.
So you go a notch and you clean it up, and then you go a notch and you clean it up. And then you go.
Okay,
Is that what you're talking about?
correct. Now, okay. So everybody, y'all like roller coasters? Y'all like roller coasters?
Hell no.
Okay, you on a roller coaster ride right now, so you're gonna love this roller coaster. So hey, you know how when you go up and you hear that, like it gets you up to the top, and then your stomach, you go down, your stomach drops. Okay, so your stomach's about to drop right now. Okay, so now I'll shift over just a little bit here. Okay. Everybody see that here? So we're gonna say that's 1/4 open too. That's what we're gonna say. Okay, we're gonna say that's 1/4 open. Okay, everybody see that? Skin fade, we're gonna call that 1/4 open. Okay, everybody take a middle picture. Okay, so I said the procedure stays the same, but the technique changes based on the hair, right? Okay, so here we go. This is the roller coaster ride. When you are cutting curly hair, you go up to fade, down to blend. Write it down. When you're cutting curly hair, you go up to fade, down to blend. Okay. So now watch this. So remember, we were open right here, right? Stay with me, Chris. We were open right here. Open, and we did what? Did we go with the grain or against the grain?
Yes.
We went against the grain, right? So when we created this and we did this open, then each time that we go against the grain, it creates a ridge or a thickness on that line because we're pushing the hair up to this line, right? So that's how you get like that ridge or that weight line right there, right? So how do we get this weight line out? We have to blend it, right? So you have to go down to blend. So now watch this. This is a roller coaster. Open, right? Open against the grain is the same thing as halfway with the grain. Open against the grain is the same thing as halfway with the grain.
Did you go through this when you was new too, bro?
Yeah, I didn't
That's
know.
like,
I didn't
what
know
the-
guards. I didn't know nothing, man.
So watch this. So I'm going open against the grain. I can go halfway and go with the grain, and I'm cutting the same hair. I'm cutting the hair to the same length. Because when I'm going with the grain, I am cutting less hair than going with the grain. So if I'm against the grain, I'm open, I'm going against it, so I'm cutting more hair. But if I go halfway with the grain, I'm cutting the hair to the same length. But because I'm cutting with the hair pattern, it's the same amount of hair. Okay, follow that? So now watch this. Open against the grain, halfway with the grain, blends it. So if I'm 1/16 open, what do I use to blend that?
1/16 halfway down.
1/16 halfway with the grain.
So always like, even with any guard, like if it's open, and you trying to blend it, it's always gonna be halfway. You trying to blend it.
If I went open against it,
Yeah.
go halfway to blend it,
Okay.
right?
That's just with curly hair, or is that with all hair?
Well, don't get ahead of yourself. Don't get ahead of yourself. See, hey, you said you didn't like roller coasters. Now you're trying to do loops and everything. Just relax. Relax. See, getting ahead of yourself. So look, 1/16 open against is equivalent to 1/16 halfway width. So now this is 1/8 open right here. What would I use to blend? 1/8 open. What would I use to blend?
Same thing, you just put it halfway.
1/8 halfway blends it. Okay. Here comes the loop.
I'm gonna kill it.
Here comes the loop. Here it comes.
Oh.
Okay. So if I have 1/16 open right here, right? And I have a ridge of hair and I just need to take off a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. 1/16 open with the grain is equal, 1/16 open against the grain is equal to 1/8 what with the grain?
Say the question one more time.
It was a lot, I ain't gonna lie, it was like a tongue twister.
Say the question one more time.
1/16 open with the grain is equivalent to 1/8 what? 1/16 open against the grain is equivalent to 1/8 what with the grain? It's not a trick question.
Yeah,
It's halfway.
yeah, it's halfway.
It's halfway. It's halfway, but because by going one guard up, you're just taking off less hair.
That's an 1/8 inch, right?
You're just taking off less hair. So
Each
so
notch,
so
a 1/2 inch.
right. So look. So if I go 1/16 open against the grain, and then I needed to blend, then I go 1/16 halfway, and that's going to take off more hair or less hair. It's going to take off more hair than if I was using 1/8 halfway. So there are sometimes when you're fading or when you're doing a cut and you need to blend, right? But you're like, man, I need to blend this, but I don't want to take off too much hair. So I know that this is my 1/16 open, so I'm going to go to 1/8 halfway, and I'm going to come down because I know I don't want to take off too much hair. And I'm really not, I know I need to blend, but I'm really not sure exactly how much is going to take off. So let me go to my 1/8 halfway, which is the equivalent to 1/16 open. Let me go to my 1/8 halfway and come down. And it's the same thing. But because the difference is, look at the guards, right? Look at the teeth. So if you look at the teeth, then you see that the 1/16, the teeth are what? Narrower. It's more narrow than the 1/8. Why is it more narrow? Because it's going to grab more hair than what this is going to grab. Follow me? That's the difference. You look at the 1/16. See how much bigger that is? I'm sorry, the 1/4 than the 1/8.
It's longer. Right?
So it grabs less hair than what the 1/8 would grab. Make sense?
You said that's the 1/8 and the 1/4, okay?
That's the 1/8 and the 1/4. Make sense? So we understand that. So the 1/4 open, we said 1/4 open. So the 1/4 open, I'm sorry, the 1/8 open is equivalent to what? 1/8 open is equivalent to what?
1/4 halfway.
1/4 halfway. If I want to do what? Blend, but take off, just take off just a little bit, right? But if I use the 1/4, right? I use the 1/4, but I still need to take off a little bit more hair. What can I use? But if I can use 1/8 what?
A little bit, like halfway.
I use 1/8 halfway.
Can't you suppose the lever a little bit more?
But understand, by even closing the lever a little bit more, it's not going to achieve taking off as much hair as if I put the 1/8 halfway on. And so I need to be what? I need to be efficient. Because the 1/8 open is the same thing if I want to take off more hair as the 1/8 halfway. So if I'm 1/8 open and I took the 1/4 halfway and I went and I was blending, I was like, man, I want to take off some hair, but that didn't take off enough. Instead of closing up, I just put the 1/8 halfway on. Because watch this. The 1/8 halfway is equivalent to the 1/4 closed.
You ready to hit the flow, man?
I'm
ready,
man. Oh, man, I'm gonna do is test it out. out.
Okay, so listen, so here's the wonderful thing about this, is that this stuff that you're learning right now, this is just enough to get you dangerous. It's not, all of you, well, most of you guys are kinesthetic learners, so it's not really gonna make sense until you have the clippers in your hand, until you're actually doing it, right? So, but this is enough to get you dangerous, and it's enough to when you're observing haircuts, it's enough to when you're watching now, you know what you're looking at and you know what you're looking for, right?
So when you set the guidelines, about a half inch,
Great question. So these guidelines generally run from about a half inch to 1 inch, depending on what type of cut you're doing. Half inch to 1 inch. Okay. So let's talk about the danger zone for barbers. The danger zone. This area right here, this is the danger zone for barbers. This area right here, this is called the parietal ridge. Parietal ridge. Parietal ridge. Okay.
There's so much.
So this area is the parietal ridge. Anybody know why this is the danger zone for barbers?
Take it on up.
Hey, can't go no higher. This is it, right? And so when you look at haircuts, right? And I don't care if you look at haircuts on YouTube, you Google haircuts, most of those haircuts, when you find errors in them, you will find them around the parietal ridge, because the parietal ridge is where most people get really, really nervous. And so they rather leave a ridge of hair rather than take too much off. And then you get up in here and now you're in trouble. Okay. So let's go back. Here's a great example of parietal ridge trouble. Everybody see it?
Oh, wait.
See it? See the weight on the parietal ridge?
Well, that's how we wanted it cut.
See the weight? You can go through almost. Here you go.
Me?
It's too high.
See the weight line?
Oh,
So you can go through a lot. I mean, here's one. This is awesome. Look at that one.
Oh, man.
So embarrassed to get his mask on.
So you see that? So we can go back and forth all day long, and we can look at, oh man, here. Parietal ridge, right? Parietal ridge. That's the danger zone, right? Because that's the most important part of blending. That's the most difficult part of blending, right? So the procedure never changes. It is the technique that changes based on the hair, right? So we just talked about curly hair, right? We said that curly hair, we have different guard play that we have to use. We got to use different guards to achieve the cut. Well, straight hair, we have to use a different technique because the hair is different, right? So if I put a 1/4 on Chris or JP's hair, hairs is gonna slide right through the teeth. It's gonna slide right. And if I try to go down and blend it, right? You can't blend straight hair by going with the grain of the hair because the hair is too fine and it slides right through the teeth. So you ask, well, how do we blend it? Clip over comb is how you blend it. So what you're doing is you are taking the comb to raise the hair up off of the scalp to allow the clippers to be able to cut it. So when you're blending and you're using straight hair, you are using clipper over comb technique to blend. So if we go back and we look at our original picture, we look at our original picture. Everybody see it? So, in this area right here, where we're blending, right in here, right around the parietal ridge, that's a clipper over comb region, right? So, we said that was 1/4 on top, right? We said it was 1/4 open on the top against the grain. Okay. Another little loop for you, Chris. Here we go. This is open no guard, right? We talked about this. Open no guard. Open no guard. Open no guard. All-purpose comb. Open no guard. Skinny teeth of all-purpose comb equals 1/16. Right with me? Open no guard, skinny teeth equal 1/16. Open no guard, wider side equals 1/8. Everybody with me? So I said, so we just said, open no guard, skinny teeth equal what? 1/16. Everybody with me on that?
What's the other one? 1/8?
Open no guard, wide teeth equal what? 1/8, right? Okay. So here we go, guys. Watch this. 1/16. What's that equal? Say it louder. That's a 1/8 now. 1/16 plus the skinny equal 1/8. What does this equal now?
See what guard you got on?
1/16 wide teeth equal what?
1/4.
1/4. So keep swinging it around. So if on this haircut, right? Everybody see right here. If I'm on this piece of hair, come around so you can see it, Trishan. I'm on this piece of hair right here, and I have 1/16 on with the wide teeth, then I'm essentially using what to blend this?
1/4.
I'm using a 1/4 to blend it.
You keep it against the comb against.
Beautiful, great question. Because watch this. This right here, and how much I rotate it out is just like me using a lever on these clippers. So like here, that's like 1/4 closed, because it's flat against the scalp. I just adjusted the lever.
Is it the same with the clipper comb?
It's the same.
Like the same concept with the.
It's the same concept. The only difference with the clipper comb is this: with the clipper comb, you are essentially you're essentially freehanding. So the clipper comb would be like using a 1/4, right? But you're essentially freehanding from a 1/4 standpoint, right? So if I took this off and I was using the clipper comb, I'm still using 1/4. If I put this on and I'm using a clipper comb, then it's still I could be anywhere from a 1/4 to like a 3/8. But the 1/4 with the clipper comb is the base level. Right? You with me on that?
How about the way you, like,
So we're talking about blending right now, right? So if I grab this, and even if I came this way, right?
sideways?
Even if I came sideways, if I am going in a direction that the hair does not grow, then I'm essentially still going against the grain. You follow me? So even if I'm here and I go sideways, the hair doesn't grow sideways, so I'm going against the grain, right? So, but where I have this comb at, if it's flat against the head, then that's the same thing as being closed. It's being closed. If I'm rotated all the way out, that's just like being open, right? The more flat it is against the scalp, then that means that I am cutting more hair. If it's rotated all the way out, that means I'm cutting less hair.
Watch that video. Ian or Ian took, I already seen it, like one of the, he said the clipper comb is 1/8 and 1/4 inch made like that so you can use it as guards. And when you turn it out, it's a different guard level.
That's what we just talked about.
Basically the same thing.
Yeah, that's what we just talked about. Yep. So, everybody understand that? Everybody with me on that? Okay, listen. So I'm gonna give you guys just a couple things. I know I gave you guys a lot of information in the last hour, right? I know you guys are like probably burnt up, right? So I'm gonna give you so I'm gonna show you a couple different things. So watch this. We're gonna run through some stuff. What kind of cut is that?
It's like a Tour de France.
It's skin.
See, that's beautiful. It's always one. I just heard JP say, see, that's like that Tour de France. It's always one. It's a skin fade. It's a skin fade, right? It is a skin fade. All a mohawk is just a skin fade that is in a defined region. Look, so somebody comes in and show you this picture, the first thing I'm asking, do you want hair or do you want skin? I want skin. So I know it's a skin fade. So all I'm doing, I'm skinning right here. I'm setting my open no guard, my 1/16, and I'm doing the same exact procedures. The procedure never changes. I don't care what type of haircut it is. It's either a skin fade or a light fade, right? So that's a skin fade. It's just a skin fade that is rounded, that goes from the temple to down behind the ear. Same cut. What type of haircut is that?
Why they call it a first fade though?
Listen.
I mean, I guess.
So listen, because people will call cuts anything. Some people might call this a South of France. Some might call it a burst fade. Some might call it the Mahomes. It's a skin fade, right? People will come in with all types of stuff. Somebody will come in and say, hey, I want a taper fade. Somebody will say, I want a shadow fade. And so as new barbers, we get caught up in all these different names, and all it does is confuse you.
Yeah, I don't want the shadow fade.
You want hair?
Compartmentalize. Do you want hair or do you want skin? Because that helps you know in your procedure, where am I starting? Make sense?
Makes sense.
And if they want skin, you just start with a different guard, right? I mean, hair. I meant to say hair.
Chris, you're gonna confuse yourself.
Man, it's all right today.
I was nervous with Chris and he did this.
What kind of cut is that?
Light fade.
Yeah, that's like.
It's a light fade because you still see the hair, right? So don't get it confused. You see the picture, then I'm just gonna ask you, hey man, do you want to start? Hey, it looks like it's hair right here. So do you want to start with hair, or do you want to start with skin? I mean, I want it to look kind of like this, and I want to start with a little bit of hair. It's a light fade, right? So this. So somebody, well, I'd like to see a shadow. Because you heard a shadow fade. You know what that is? That's still a light fade. Instead of starting open, no guard, I'm gonna start halfway because halfway will still allow me to see like a little shadow of hair. That's all it is. Yeah, and it's the same thing. And then, so I might start here. You can see. Here's my boundary. You just set your boundaries and you're doing the fades the same way. What is that? Trayshawn, what is that?
But no, put it back up. Put it back up. That's the skin.
What is that? What is that?
See, they call it burst rate. Burst rate. It's just
What is it?
skin.
Right.
You got no hair back there.
What is it?
I see skin. But I'm gonna ask the customer and see what the customer wants, right? So look, man. So somebody might call that a birth fade. Somebody might come in and say, "Hey, man, I want a south of France." What is it?
Just like the other one.
Skin fade, just like the other one. Burst fade, south of skin fade. And just FYI, when you're doing this, typically somebody comes and says, "I want a burst fade, I want south of France." Then your fading thing, you're gonna go from the temple to the middle of the ear, and you keep the same procedures.
The temple to the middle.
Temple to the middle of the ear.
The first guideline.
Temple to the middle of the ear. What is it?
Skin.
Okay. What? Right?
Yeah, that's light.
Good.
That's just still see here.
Or that's just a couple of days after you got it.
What kind of cut is that?
That's
It's a light.
taper.
That's I mean they call it a taper, but
You got it.
Okay, so check this out. We're gonna talk about two things and then we're done. Tapers. If somebody comes in and says, "I want a taper," all a taper is a fade in a confined area. A tapers go from the top of the ear, if it's a regular taper, top of the ear to about the eyebrow, taper. If it is a high taper, top of the ear to about the temple. Hey, but guess what? It's still a skin fade, it's still a light fade. Somebody comes and say, "I want a taper." So do you want skin right here? Do you want hair? I want skin. It's a skin fade in this area. somebody comes in, like in that picture, I want a high taper. You want skin, you want hair. I want a little bit of hair. It's a light fade in that confined area. Everybody got it? So we got the taper. Looks like we got a little bit of hair. I'd ask him, but that looks like a light fade to me, right?
It's a high taper, right?
Well, so let's ask. Here's an eyebrow right here, and that's the top of the ear. This the temple up here. So that's a high taper.
High.
So it's a higher taper right there.
High speed fade.
There you go, Chris. See, I knew you'd get it.
Yeah.
See that? Right to the eyebrow right there. Looks like he's got a little bit of hair right there. So we'll call that.
Okay. High.
Still a skin fade, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Lastly, I always end by showing people this haircut.
That's the booster, right? The booster.
So you get people say, man, I want the boost. You get people say, man, I want the Texas fade. That's the most common thing. This is the Texas fade. What haircut is this?
Skin.
Skin fade, right? Just, hey, you can see it. Look, skin right here. Hey, look, open no guard, 116. This is probably about 1/8 halfway. And you're fading in this area. But this is still all skin. This is skin fade.
Would you rock that haircut? Texas. It's called an airbender.
You know, that sounds like start up old, quick. That's what it look like.
Okay, so listen. Hey, over the last, we've been going at it now about an hour and a half. I give you guys a ton of information. It's gonna be uploaded so you can look at what you missed, right? Hey, you can go ahead and end it. So, giving you guys a ton of information. I do not expect you to be experts at this or you to even grasp this